let's get into a very controversial Money in the Bank premium live event. Where do you want to start?
Um, Drew McIntyre should not have won Money in the Bank. That whole thing was stupid. Um, it basically ruined the entire match with Damian Priest and Seth Rollins. I was very interested in what they were going to do with that match because of the stipulation that was attached to it. If Priest lost, he would have to leave the Judgment Day. Whereas if Seth lost, he would not be able to challenge Priest again for that title. Now, last night on Monday Night Raw, Priest decided to take out that stipulation because he said, after I beat Gunther, I want to do a proper match with you. We'll get more into that whole thing with Priest and Gunther closer to SummerSlam. But yeah, I was so interested in the Priest Rollins match, and then for them to ruin it with the whole Punk and McIntyre stuff, I'm just like, ugh.
So, well, I agree that the Drew McIntyre winning the Money in the Bank ladder match ruined the expectation and the anticipation of the World Championship match. I will say this, that when you think about it logically, and again, we'll get into Gunther and Priest for the World Championship, but I think that most of us probably think Gunther is going to win the World Championship because WWE probably wants him to walk in at Bash in Berlin with the World Championship. I also
I
think
can push back on that actually, because I think there's an opportunity. They just announced that Bad Blood is happening in October, right?
yes.
So what if you have Priest beat Gunther at SummerSlam? You could run Priest versus Rollins at Bash in Berlin, and then at Bad Blood for the World Heavyweight Championship, Finn Balor, Damian Priest.
It's a scenario they could go with, but I don't think that that's the direction they're going. So the way I see it, like I said, is WWE probably wants Gunther to win the world title at SummerSlam. If Gunther does win the world championship, he's going to have a long championship reign. Maybe not as long as the Intercontinental Championship, but possibly pretty close. Because no one's going to beat Gunther for a long time, I imagine. Then you have the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes as the undisputed champion, which I don't think anybody in their right mind thinks he's losing the championship right now to anybody not named Roman Reigns, The Rock, or maybe Randy Orton. There's an outside shot. So, with that in mind, you have presumably the two world champions on both brands that we expect to hold the championship for a long time. So, why waste a Jey Uso, a Carmelo Hayes, an LA Knight, whoever you want to win that briefcase, for another year for them to basically do nothing with the Money in the Bank briefcase, where you could easily solve that issue with Drew winning it and cashing it in during that match because there is no plan for the Money in the Bank briefcase, throughout the entire year. And it does make sense in storyline. Logically, it is the best way to go, not only from the perspective of CM on costing McIntyre the championship, but we saw this exact same scenario play out almost in reverse, where it was Rollins and McIntyre at WrestleMania with Priest with the contract. Now you have Priest and Rollins with McIntyre with the contract, trying to get revenge on what happened to him at WrestleMania. So again, storyline wise, to me, that's why I think when you actually think about it logically, I'm okay with it.
It just like when I that was one of the few stories on Monday Night Raw I've been interested in because I hate everything with Dominic and Liv Morgan. Don't get me started on
And
that.
that's where we completely disagree.
I hate it. Um, I liked the 6-man tag team match when it was announced that that was going to be the main event. I thought that meant somebody was going to debut or somebody was going to return, whether that was Jimmy Uso, maybe Roman Reigns, but that's probably happening at SummerSlam. You could have had Hikuleo debut or something, but at the same time, I did like that match because it was just pure carnage. And
Yeah, I did think that if you weren't going to do a return, even if we knew what was going to happen in the World Championship match, I still would have had that match main event. That was my only gripe. I think if you would have switched the six-man tag and the show goes off the air, I think you could get even more of an effect of Drew McIntyre going absolutely berserk again. If the show goes off the air with him going crazy after CM Punk screws him out of the World Championship again.
yeah, I, although they did that already at Clash at the Castle. So I'm assuming they just didn't want, you know, they didn't want that same ending, and they're trying to build up to the obvious Solo Sikoa versus Cody Rhodes SummerSlam match.
Yeah,
So
and the image of Solo and the new Bloodline standing over Cody as a closing shot is not a wrong way to go either.
yeah,
Um,
and
Now,
I thought that was absolutely the right decision to have Solo pin Cody. Um, but let me just talk about this. Oh my God, Jacob Fatu is an absolute monster. Where did this guy come from?
another
Like,
Bloodline member, and there's more waiting in the wings, my friend.
see, this is why, for me personally, I'm liking SmackDown more than Monday Night Raw because I think SmackDown has the more intriguing storylines. Tiffany Stratton just won the Women's Money in the Bank briefcase. Is she, is she going to cash in at SummerSlam on whoever wins between Nia Jax and Bailey? You know, you've got everything with the bloodline and Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens and Randy Orton. I'm enjoying that. You've got everything with Logan Paul and LA Knight.
Yeah.
Um, you know, I'm I'm also liking how Carmelo Hayes is like trying to tie into everything with LA Knight also. So for me, I'm finding SmackDown overall to be more interesting and more entertaining than Raw.
See, I think, and somebody put this in perspective, and I thought it was a really smart and clever thing that what this person said, that going into Money in the Bank, SmackDown had a lot of stories that were upcoming. Cody Solo, Logan Paul and LA Knight, Tiffany Stratton probably winning the Money in the Bank, if not her, Chelsea Green. And just a bunch of upcoming stories. Where Raw had the stories in motion already with Drew and Punk, Liv and Dom, the Gable Wyatt Six, Rollins and Priest, everything going on with that. So that's
Sammy
the
and
difference.
Braun Breaker.
Sammy and Breaker, which they could always turn into Sammy, Breaker, Sheamus, Dragunov, whoever else you want to throw in there for a multi-man match.
Yeah.
So I will say, I said this too. My one disappointment with the men's Money in the Bank ladder match, and I get why looking back at it, because you want to let all the stars shine. You don't want to have too much interference. But I thought it was a missed opportunity to not at least have the Wyatt Six cost Gable the briefcase, to have Logan Paul cost LA Knight the briefcase. Now, again, maybe it's logistics. Maybe they can't get into Canada or wherever the case may be. I don't know, though. Obviously, the Wyatt Six was on Raw and they were in Canada, so I don't know. Maybe it's you don't want overexposure, but I thought if you're gonna overbook a Money in the Bank ladder match, this was the opportunity to do so.
Yeah. Um, I agree. I fully thought LA Knight was gonna, or I'm sorry, Logan Paul was gonna cost LA Knight. I thought the Wyatt Six were gonna do something with Chad Gable. I
And
do, I do kind of wish, as much as I enjoyed DIY winning the tag titles on SmackDown, I think it would have been better if that match had been on Money in the Bank.
well, I'll say this: it's one of the reasons why our man Seaboss last week said Carmelo Hayes was going to win the briefcase.
I was, see, I was one of the few people who actually predicted Carmelo Hayes would win the briefcase because I just really like Carmelo Hayes. I thought he was fantastic as NXT champion. His feud with Trick Williams was awesome. I haven't watched the match between them at Stand and Deliver. I'll have to do that at some point, but I like what Carmelo Hayes can do in the ring. I think he's got great personality, and I think his mic work is on point. So I think it would, if they had chosen to give him the Money in the Bank briefcase, I think I would have been fine with it.
I like him. I don't think he's been at that level yet on the main roster. He's not. He hasn't really been in the LA Knight feud. Has been going back and forth, but he has not really been in a feud yet on the main roster.
Yeah. Um, to tie in AEW for just a minute, that's why I liked Ricky Starks for so long, is because, you know, feel like him and Carmella are kind of similar in that I like both of their personalities, and that they're both very brash and, like, kind of full of themselves, and they both view themselves as like stars, and I really like both of them, their in terms of their in-ring work. But for some reason in AEW, it just felt like anytime Ricky Starks got any type of momentum, they would just yank the carpet or rug, whatever, out from underneath him.
What did you think of the decision to put Miss Money in the Bank on Tiffy time?
I thought that was absolutely the right decision. I think you could have given it to um, Zoe Stark, and you could have gotten away with that. But Tiffany Stratton, they clearly view her as a top star already, so she's going to win that title. I would probably have her cash in on Bayley. That's just me, because I don't think it just wouldn't make sense for basically a heel to cash in on a heel. That just doesn't seem right.
They did it before. If you remember Ronda Rousey, Nia Jax, Money in the Bank 2018, Alexa Bliss.
That is true. Which Little Miss Bliss, I can't wait till she comes back. 5 feet of fury.
I can't either. It'll be interesting to see if she is involved with the Wyatt Six or not. I still haven't decided what they're gonna do with her in that situation. Um, so we'll see. Very interesting. I think you could have made an argument for Chelsea Green to win the briefcase. I thought it would have been entertaining.
That would have been
her
that would have been hilarious.
her jumping up and down at the start of the match trying to get the briefcase. Then she takes the ladder and tries to knock it down with the ladder. I thought that was a cool spot.
Yeah.
And obviously, the table spot at the end was an incredible bump. Let me just say, the woman absolutely took more bumps than the men. Not saying the men's match was bad, but those women put their bodies on the line, man.
Yeah, I would say the women's match was like 100 times better than the men's match, because I feel like the women took way more risks. They, like, some of those ladder bridge spots that the women had, I was like in the front seat of the car watching it, and I even felt my back shaking. I'm like, ugh, that doesn't feel good.
Well, again, I think this was the rare Money in the Bank where the men's match, almost everybody in it had a storyline, but maybe Andrade and Carmelo Hayes.
Yeah.
So it was more storyline driven, where the woman didn't really have that. So they got to go out there and kill their bodies, I think, more. And it was the only women's match on the card.
So, what did you think of the decision to keep the title on Sami Zayn?
So I told C-Boss this last week when we were previewing the show while you were in South Carolina. I told him this was going to happen, and I believe it was the right decision. Because if you're going to give Braun Breaker the championship, number one, he has to kill Sami Zayn, which Sami Zayn's character is the underdog from the underground. It's a perfect way to book Sami. It's the same way they booked Sami against Gunther at WrestleMania. And number two, if you're gonna give Breaker the championship, he has to have a long championship reign. Again, maybe not as long as Gunther, but a pretty decently long reign. And I don't think WWE wants to have that right now. And I think there's a lot more heels that could challenge for the Intercontinental Championship as opposed to baby faces and give Braun Breaker legitimate feuds for long. That's just my gut feeling. So I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with it, but personally, I would have preferred Braun Breaker to win the title because my whole thing is, and they AEW like pretty much proved me wrong with this because I thought it was they needed to give Swerve the title at Revolution, but he's been awesome since winning the title at Dynasty, so they did prove me wrong. But I feel like Braun Breaker, he's getting that crowd heat now, and he's looked like an absolute animal, badass, whatever you want to say. So it felt like Money in the Bank was the right time to pull the trigger.
I think Braun needs to get again more acclimated to the main roster more than he already has. Get a couple good feuds under his belt, and then like in a year or so, he can have a Brock Lesnar X dominance where he takes a championship off somebody. Like at this time next year, if you were to tell me Braun Breaker could be one of the favorites to win Money in the Bank, I'd completely believe you on that.
I would say at this, or not at this time, but when the Royal Rumble comes around next year, I would say he could be one of the favorites to win that.
I would actually disagree with you on that
How come?
because I think the world championship matches are pretty much already set in stone.
Rock and or Cody versus Rock
I
and
think it's going to be Cody versus Rock, and I think on the world championship side, you can go one or two ways. You could go Priest against Balor, or you could go Rollins against Punk.
yeah. But then who do you have in that scenario win Royal Rumble? Rollins?
It, so right now, I would think probably Punk.
Oh, so you would give the title. So you're saying Rollins gets the title back?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and Punk gets his moment at WrestleMania. I actually think there's a real possibility. And again, if they do Cody Rock or whether they do Rock Roman, I think the original main event of WrestleMania 40 could be our main event of WrestleMania 41. I think it's on the table.
Yeah, I could see that. But you got anything else?
No, not much. You know, I know you gave it a thumbs down. I actually pretty much enjoy the PLE. Again, I'm not into the results as much as you. I'm more the story driven guy. And again, I'm more invested in the Dom, Liv, Rhea, Judgment Day storyline more than you. So I absolutely loved what happened last night on Monday Night Raw. And the only thing again, it just depends on story. So you're liking SmackDown more because of the stories that are coming. I think Raw is basically a sitcom or a soap opera live. And that's what pretty much Triple H has said over the last couple of press conferences. WWE is a live movie. And I do appreciate the one thing is that when they are booking these premium live events and these stories, like SummerSlam, and we're going to be there and we're excited for it, and maybe that's part of the reason. But it does legitimately feel like it's a big four PLE. Storylines are going to pay off. You're invested in the product. There's going to be endings. There's going to be new beginnings. Where some years it does not feel like that.
Yeah. It's interesting. They still have not announced where SummerSlam's going to be in 2025. But before we finish with Money in the Bank, we do have to talk about arguably the GOAT. And
Yes. How
yeah,
did we skip past this? Oh my goodness. Arguably, the GOAT is right. John Cena announcing his retirement, going to be throughout 2025, a year long. Oh, you know what? Never mind. I lied about the World Championship match at WrestleMania 41 because I know what it's going to be. I don't know how the hell you get there, but make it Randy Orton as the champion against John Cena.
can't you? Or what if you do Punk versus Cena at Mania?
Orton and Cena need the WrestleMania match more to me.
Mm.
That to me, Orton has become Cena's like they're the Michael Jordan and Larry Bird, if you will, of WWE, where they just had this rivalry back and forth for years, and they never had a one-on-one WrestleMania match.
Mm, but yeah,
Now you know, by the way, in my dreams, Tony Khan is going to let Adam Copeland out of that contract early so we can get one more John Cena match, but I know that's not happening.
no, Tony Khan's not doing that.
Unfortunately, though, we need it badly.
Sorry, but um, yeah, I mean, Cena's done so many awesome things over the years. It's hard to pick out like a single favorite match of his. I can pick out one of my worst matches for him last year against Austin Theory at WrestleMania. That match was bad. Ugh.
Well, yeah, all the stuff he did with John Laurinaitis back in the day too. There was that time where Cena became Super Cena when WWE first went to PG, and obviously it was fun to hate him. We were in that time where CM Punk was the cool heel, and The Rock came back, and all of this, stuff was happening. And then Cena sort of disappeared, and what they say is, absence makes the heart grow fonder. You are missed when you go away. And John Cena came back, and it was right around the time when he and his then fiance Nikki Bella was in that mixed tag match with Miz and Maurice at WrestleMania 33 that John became a face again to everybody, sort of overnight, if you ask me.
That's where Cena proposed to Nikki Bella
Yeah.
at that time. I think one of my favorite matches of Cena's was the I Quit match against Batista.
Oh, Extreme Rules 2010. Yeah, when he used the duct tape.
Yes, and not just the duct tape, but the freaking car.
Well, that was over the limit when they did
Yeah,
the.
that's the one I'm talking about with the
Okay,
car.
I was thinking the last man standing match, Extreme Rules. That was my bad.
No,
Um, I think
yeah,
I think my one of my favorites off the top of my head, no surprise to you probably, is the Unforgiven '06 when he faced Edge in the TLC in Toronto.
yeah. Um, it was cool getting to see him live. I got to see him live at Monday Night Raw in Cleveland when he faced Kane in a no DQ
I,
match.
I was there. It was a stretcher match, I believe. My memory serves me
No, it
well.
was a no DQ match, I think. Cause
I
yeah, it
that
was
that
because
was 2014. I could have swore it was a stretcher match.
it was leading up to
Money in
uh
the.
no WrestleMania 34 when
Oh yeah. Okay. So I saw another one. Okay. So he faced Kane another time. I got you. Okay.
when he faced Kane because Cena was trying to call out Undertaker for a match at WrestleMania.
That was one of my favorite storylines they did, where he actually sat in the crowd at WrestleMania. And I
Yes.
don't know if you heard the story behind that match, but Taker trained for like a 30-minute match. And the day of Mania, he walked into Vince's office and Vince goes, "You got 5 minutes, kid." And he goes, "What?" And he goes, "John, come on, we can't work fight." And John goes, "Dude, I've been calling you out. You got to kick my ass in 3 minutes, bro."
I still like what one of my other favorite Cena moments, Mania 35. He comes out as Thugonomics John.
Yeah, with Elias, who I still say was one of those underrated talents and misused in WWE.
Yes, when
I
he became Ezekiel.
he was so no when he was over as Elias.
Yeah.
WrestleMania 34, WrestleMania 35. You had him, you have Rusev Day in that same time period. Both those guys got over organically and Vince hated them both.
Yep.
So there's so many Cena moments. I said on Brandon's World, and I know here on Championship Rings as well, we will break down John Cena's career throughout 2025 and obviously pay tribute. And I think it's going to be very interesting because WWE and professional wrestling as a whole is a lot like baseball, where you don't really have a GOAT, but you have eras. And certainly Cena's in the conversation, obviously. Hulk Hogan, Stone Cold, The Rock, Ric Flair, The Undertaker, Bruno San Martino, Roman Reigns, I think, can now enter that conversation with the way he's carried WWE over the last decade. I
You
think
have to
that,
include Randy Orton in that discussion, I believe.
well, I don't know because Randy was never the top guy. I'm talking about top guys.
Okay, I think you can make a solid argument, Randy. Think about how many times he's won the title. 14. First
Yeah, but you can make. I mean, you can make that same argument for Triple H.
first ballot Hall of Famer. He was in a number of fantastic factions. Evolution, Rated RKO, um, the Wyatt family. That whole thing was great with him and Bray. Rest in peace to Bray. Um, I could include Seth Rollins in the discussion, for God's sakes.
For GOAT, no, it's one of the best ever. Yeah, but not GOAT.
Oh, I
GOAT
think
and best wrestler ever is a different conversation.
okay. For best wrestler ever, I would say Seth is in that conversation. In the
Ran-
GOAT,
Randy's in that conversation. I don't know about GOAT. I think you could make an argument, but I think Orton would have to get to 16 titles.
I think I think even if he doesn't, I think Randy is already in that GOAT discussion. That's just
And
me.
see, I love Randy, and I would agree with you if he was on the level that Cena was on at the time Cena was there. Because even though they had that rivalry, it always felt like Orton was a notch below Cena. And Orton never did the merchandise sales Cena did, which is hard.
Right, but what
That's the
is
that's the only knock against Randy. The one good thing goes for Randy is longevity. A lot like the LeBron Jordan argument, where longevity would favor Randy. That I would listen to.
yeah,
If Randy goes for another half decade or 7 8 years, you got a real argument.
yeah. Um I also think, like, yes, Cena has the AA. Yes, he has the you can't see me move. But you could make an argument that the RKO and the vintage Orton are more over. I think
Well,
you
you
could
could
make
make an argument the RKO and the stunner and maybe the spear are the three most popular moves in the history of the sport.
yeah.
So that I agree with you there. I don't know. It's very interesting. Like I said, we're gonna have to get a bunch of us on a wrestling panel and hammer this out. Because I don't know. I think you could make a legitimate argument for Randy. I think you could make a legitimate argument for Cena. I think the Undertaker has to be in that conversation along with the others we mentioned. So
Yeah. I'm gonna be very curious because Randy keeps eyeing that WWE Championship. When do they pull the trigger on that feud?
So me and Seabosh were talking about this last week, and me and him agree on this. So I'll get your thoughts on it quickly. I don't know if it's a good idea to do that feud because I don't know if you can turn Randy heel at this stage of his career because I don't know if people are gonna boo him.
You mean because of everything with him and Kevin Owens?
No, just with Randy Orton is so over right now. The RKO is so over. His theme song is so over. People are so glad to see him back because people thought Randy Orton was going to have to retire. Very similar to Edge when he came back in 2020 and we saw Edge and Judgment Day did not work because Edge could no longer be a heel. He was great as a heel back in the day, but fans were not going to boo him anymore. I think Randy Orton is in that same category now.
You, as with Cody as champion, it feels like a mistake to not do that feud, though. Given how much history is there, you've seen, like, when Cody was talking about cutting that promo in Madison Square Garden, he was saying, "We're in Madison Square Garden, the world's most famous arena. I should be defending my WWE Championship." Randy was eyeing him down, and when you had everything at the end of or at Clash at the Castle, you saw Randy eyeing that WWE Championship. You have to do that feud.
I
Give
think
it,
you can. I think you are taking a real risk though if you do it because I think Cody would almost be the guy getting booed in that feud. That's all I'm saying. I think that's how over Randy is.
but here's the thing, though. people have been asking for Cody to turn heel. That was part of, like, you saw that in AEW. I think people are still clamoring for that. That
I don't think the WWE fans are. I think Cody is on a Cena level with the audience. I'm not saying he's with me, but with the little kids and everybody out there at that Cena level, Cody is absolutely. That is why they put the title on him. That if it wasn't, I don't know if you saw the backstage documentary, but if it wasn't for We Want Cody, Roman and Rock would have been the main event of
oh I
WrestleMania 40, and Cody would have been kicked to the curb.
oh I know. I watched the WrestleMania documentary, which I thought that documentary was fantastic.
I
Um,
completely agree.
my only issue with that though is I would have liked a little more on some of the other matches and the like putting together those storylines. I get that like Rock, Roman, Seth, and Cody. I get that build was crazy and all that. I just would have liked a little bit of perspective on like Becky versus Rhea and like
Well,
Io.
those plans didn't change. That's the thing. That's why, because those plans didn't change.
Right.
They weren't going to shoot this documentary until all this started happening.
I no, I again, I don't have an issue with the documentary only being on Rock, Roman, Cody, and Seth. I would have just liked a little bit on the other matches and how like those feuds came together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, very interesting developments. We'll dive into this as it later progresses.